I happened to get a glimpse of one of the first proofs because Meridiaan Uitgevers knew I was sort of in love with your work, and they sent it to me so I could look at the PDF. So now it's a book that I've been keeping coming back to, and I think that's worthwhile mentioning because every time you read this book, you'll find something else. It's divided in two parts. You've maybe it's fair to say the first part. It starts with Silvestre, your son. He's 20 minutes old. You're holding him. How old is he now, by the way?
6.
6 years old. And then in this first part, we hear a lot of, or read a lot of extremely funny and moving stories. In the second part, I don't know if you agree, it's more about you, because it's not only about your son, but about your relationship with your father, for example, and you're like coming to terms in a positive way with fatherhood. What is it like to raise a kid in Mexico City?
Wow, big question. Thank you for this invitation, for your reading. I did enjoy the poems. Poetry goes beyond our sense of intelligibility.
Mm-hmm.
So it's music. So
you heard the rhythm.
Yeah, I have to keep listening to those poems, and afterwards I eventually would learn the language. That's why I mean I as you can hear, I don't speak English, real English, But when I was a teenager, we started reading Emily Dickinson, which sounds really stupid because it's really hard to read Emily Dickinson. But we had these translations into the Spanish from Spain, which is very different from our Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
So we started reading these bilingual editions and reading in English and reading in Spanish and correcting the translation, and because we didn't like it. That's how we started learning English in a way, and at the same time, I always say that my English comes from the exposure to Emily Dickinson and Nirvana, so it's really
I'm
weird.
From the same generation as the Nirvana got big, so I can get that, I suppose. Because it's true. You've already published 2 volumes of poetry, if I'm not mistaken, before your debut in 2006 with Bonsai, right? So, I mean, your work is poetic, obviously, but you're not writing poems anymore, or just keeping them to yourself?
Yeah, I write. Sometimes what happens is that I start writing. I mean, in the very beginning, I do some formless exercising every day, and sometimes I go with the flow. I haven't published poetry in a long while.
But it's there.
And sometimes, for example, Chilean poet, which is a very the most conventional novel I've written. I mean,
it looks almost like
the
a novel.
size of a novel. Yeah. I mean, it started like a poem. It started like there is a part of the novel where the word stepfather, padrastro, is discussed.
Yes.
And the first attempt of this novel were those was a writing about that word in Spanish.
And in this other indigenous language, right?
Yeah.
Whereby it doesn't have a biological connotation, etc. Yeah, that's also a wonderful book with a lovely opening. These 2 teenagers on the couch. But when your son was born, you started making notes, right?
Yeah.
Is that how the idea of writing this book, like, sort of came into you?
Every book, I think, I knew I was going to write about him, about what's going on. I mean, it was the natural thing. It's different to publish. Publish is an absolutely different thing.
Yeah.
But the writing, I didn't want to repress it. I mean, it would have been so weird to write about something else, you know?
Yeah, because it's all absorbing. As we can read, it takes over your entire life, so to speak. But did you have to be convinced then to publish it, or along the way you started deciding?
No, I started showing my writing to people, to friends. And actually, I wrote a lot more. I wrote like a 500 pages book, and they were choosing and they were finding the book. Some of my readers were not literary readers. Some others were. It was also about
parents were there.
Yeah.
Ah, yeah.
Knew that because there is some communication lost, I think, between fathers, between men. There
about fatherhood.
Yeah. We talk a lot, but that doesn't seem to exist. The tradition of that writing, or you find only self-help books and. So I got to the conclusion that I wanted to read books like this one, in a way, different experiences. Of course, I'm not saying exactly my writing represents that, but I don't think there is a lot of...
So you're saying men generally don't really communicate, or in their manly silent way?
Oh, this is something so interesting. I think men, there is this idea that men don't speak that much, don't communicate their feelings.
Well, in the movies, the hero never speaks too much.
But I think that changed decades ago. But literature is not always showing
it's catching up
those.
with this.
Yes, those changes. I don't feel represented by men who don't communicate, who don't talk, who don't express their feelings. I mean, I don't find that interesting. But obviously, I recognize something about masculinity there. You know, as in the final piece, I talk about this movie, Water. What is the waterfall?
In your book,
yeah,
a river runs through it.
A river runs through it. Not the movie. There's a novel and a movie.
Yeah.
But the novel is about those kind of men. They're fishing and they are not talking at all, and they really have a struggle with communication. It's a problem for them.
Yeah.
So I recognize something in that.
There was a gap that needed to be filled, so to speak.
But I don't like it. I don't like I think men are different. Are obviously misrepresented in that sense.
Yeah, I mean, it will be a good idea to start representing them in another way. Maybe they will follow. Yeah, because you also write about certain fathers. You've just become a father. Like, I think you sort of write about specific types of fathers in your book. The ones that all of a sudden, when they have children, start to live their second youth.
Yeah.
Other fathers or parents who push their kids to achieve a lot of things that they themselves might not achieve, whereas you sort of plead throughout the book, I suppose, for fathers that take it like with humility and joy and in a sort of more relaxed fashion, if that's possible at all. What did because your wife is also a writer, right? So she was reading it. She was not thinking like, you're stealing my material. I also want to write a book.
No, because she didn't write a book before, and it was published before mine. And it's more about pregnancy and the first months. I think the one who would complain here is my kid, because there are 2 books about him. But
yeah, that must be suffocating.
yeah, it's really clear for him that he's the son of 2 writers.
Because he is 6, right? But,
Yeah.
I imagine a kid thinking like, both my parents are writers. I mean, does he sort of conceptualize this thing, or it's just like being a fireman or a
No,
policeman?
for him as a natural thing.
Yeah.
No,
Okay,
so sorry. It's like I was telling the other day, like he has a fellow at school who has 2 dads and another one who has 2 moms. So there's nothing to explain there.
It's just
for
there.
him, it's us. We see that difference, but he just learns that you can have 2 dads or 2 moms, So there's nothing to explain there, and same thing with us. I mean, writing is around, books are around.
If he has a children's book, like he knows, this is written by a writer.
Yeah, actually, there is a children's book I wrote with illustrations.
Really? You didn't mention that in your book?
No, because it's afterwards. But I might mention in the book, I am afraid of squirrels. And the book is called "My Opinion About Squirrels."
Okay. Okay, that sounds like I want that to be translated.
And that book is the one my kid prefers, obviously. Actually, the book is called in Spanish like children's literature. That's the title of the book. It's a very weird book, a weird title.
Yeah, because talking about these titles, because in Dutch it's called Vadertaal, like language of the father, so to speak. And your previous book was here translated as bijna een vader, almost a father. But in
I didn't know that. What happened? What did happen?
Talk about that at
my
the bar
publisher
later.
is there,
because I thought in Spanish your book is like translated like literatura infantil, right? And in English, childish literature.
Yeah.
That's a big difference there,
a big
right?
difference. Yeah.
So, what do you think about this difference?
Publishers do whatever they want. They don't respect
you just
authors.
Write the book and the title.
No, I'm kidding, because the title in Spanish, this is hard to explain, but literatura infantil is like saying books for children in Spanish.
Presuppose a category like you
It's
find
a
in
category. It's the label, and this is not a book for children. So, but also infantil. It's like an insult in Spanish. Don't be childish. And in that case means childish. It's like 2 words, infantile, childish, and at the same time the category. Books for children. So it's 3 things. So I play with that. And that's because I like playing.
I've noticed.
But there was a lengua paterna, which is like father tongue, was another possibility.
Chilean, right? Because you're from Chile, you live in Mexico. So that's also a meaning that which comes in the Dutch language. That's also weird because your son speaks Mexican, which is quite different, right?
I like Lengua Paterna as the title of the book in Spanish, but I like everything about it except for the sound.
Okay,
I felt it sounded like death metal, like Lengua Paterna, like shouting.
It doesn't sound like Nirvana.
I know that. And so when Neleke, one of my publishers here, talked to me about the book, I told her there was this other possibility, and she said that sounded good for it. And she immediately said, yes, that is the title. And in English, well, it was a big discussion, but I like childish literature a lot.
Yeah, because it presupposes sort of tongue-in-cheek play. I was wondering, Alejandro, I don't know what to ask you first. Okay, I'm going to ask you about Jennifer Zambra after this, but first I want to know, you are writing a book. Your son is really in there, like almost speaks through you if you read it, and your father as well. We will get to that. But do you feel, because part of the enjoyment of your book is that I'm never really sure, I mean, if it actually happened, what you are describing, which is also, it doesn't really matter generally, because when you are reading, it is happening, right? But did you feel less free in terms of what you could make up writing about your son than in your previous work?
Well, this is a different book in that sense, but I wouldn't put that difference in the in exactly related to what you mean.
Okay, tell me.
I mean, it is different because it is really what happened. I mean, it is the closest I've gotten to experience. And at the same time, I shared a lot my writing with friends and with my wife, and they even, in a way, characters of the book. You know, there are two pieces in the end where I read the draft to the characters.
Yeah,
so they can.
They comment on it.
They can comment and or three pieces, I think, where that happens.
Once to your father, which is extremely funny and cruel, and I don't know. That's also a very read it as a very complicated relationship, but also with a lot of love. It almost feels like a reconciliation. This book also with your father, in a sense, who's still living in Chile, right? Because you are talking to him about an event that happened when you were 15 in this particular part. And he got mocked, so to speak. And this is one of the things I thought, does this really happen? Did you really kick the roller in the balls?
Yeah.
That's brilliant.
Right on the balls.
Okay. Well, that was the important part of my question.
But the whole story is maybe you wouldn't understand what we're talking about. But basically, I thought I've never written about this, and this is obviously something relatable, something
safe. So
I thought someday I will write about that morning. My father and I, when I was 15 years old, went to downtown Santiago, and two thieves came across. We realized what was going on, and my father decided to make a scandal and shouted, "You thieves! You wanna?" And they immediately reacted and said, "You are the thieves," and started blaming us. And it was a terrible moment because we were darker than them, you know. So that's why they wanted the idea of we being the thieves was realistic for people around, you know. But what happened was that we started a fight, and I have never fought in my life. But one of the thieves kicked my my father's
jaw. Yeah,
and he lost the contact of one of his eyes. And she saw nothing without it. It was practically blind without that contact. So he tried to get it back, to hand it, and the thief insisted on kicking him, but I kicked him in the balls.
Yeah. So finally,
So I defended my father, and my father was
he was proud
still
of
by
you.
then, but still by then he was bigger than me. We were the same height, but he was more like a sport kind of person, and strong. I was really thin, believe it or not. I was thin. So it was so impressive to defend him,
Yeah, as the natural state of things should be that he would defend you. But I also find it interesting. You do that in other books as well, maybe not purposely, because this actually happened. You address this sort of micro-political problem of, in this case, racism, because you also say, like, even we thought it was logical that people thought that we were the thieves.
Yeah, that's really...
That's like how prejudice gets internalized. But you also do that in previous book.
Because they say it was natural for people around to think I was the thief. You think, what would you have thought in the position of the other people?
Yeah. Because talking about like the political, you obviously grew up. I still want to get to Jennifer Zambra, but we do that after this. That will be explained later. In terms of the political, you grew up as a child during the dictatorship, which was like 73 until 1990, basically. It's very weird to read that you had sort of a childhood that seemed unencumbered by, well, at least for you as a child, you seemed to just feel free and walk around the streets. And what I want to ask is, how did this, do you think, affect your writing about your parents and the stories that they've told or not told you about this period in your life?
Oof, that's... I could answer that in a book.
Okay.
In a whole book. But no, I mean, what I think, you mentioned that but by the end of this book, it seems like a reconciliation, and I agree with that. But I think we have this language for family relationships that is not enough to express what really happens. I mean, it is even more complex than that. It's not that rupture, reconciliation. I mean, family relationships don't end. Even after death, you keep thinking of them and flowing into them and rereading them and remembering things. So in a way, it was 20 years ago. It was really hard for me to really separate childhood and dictatorship.
Okay.
Because they happened at once. I mean, it's not even an opinion. I mean, when I was a kid, for example, I would see adults as people really boring, because in that world they were not talking to each other. They were not. They were saying hello, but nothing else.
Only formalities.
Yeah, you wouldn't talk to your neighbor. But we kids, we did that. We were playing soccer. We didn't know what was going on, or we did know, but very, very little. But we were having fun, and adults were not talking to each other, and at the same time were not talking to you. Were more like shouting, like doing this bossy silent kind of character.
Yeah.
Men and women, I think mostly men, but also women were like that. Our mothers were protecting us, but we didn't know that. Our fathers were protecting us, and we didn't know that.
You
But
didn't always take it like a friendly gesture. Yeah. Yeah.
But as a kid, you would see them and see only that they were boring, and then as a teenager you realize that they were frightened and that they were protecting you, and that was a shitty world. So in a way, every time you think about childhood, you would think about dictatorship too, and at the same time there was this blame, this sometimes useless blaming, sometimes fruitful blaming. When you think about your childhood and you realize, for example, that there were happy moments and but it wasn't a happy country, you know.
No, because you also talk about the childhood of the childhood, so to speak. So the part that obviously your parents were taking care of you, like you are doing now with your son. I mean, he's 6, so he's becoming more and more aware. But this whole mystery of when you were not aware that your parents were busy with you, and just your first memory starts maybe, I don't know, what is it in your case, like 4 or 5 or...
Yeah, I think that happens to every mother or father here. I don't know if you agree, but when you become a mother or father, you think a lot about your own childhood. I mean, I have some friends that, female friends, that right after giving birth, when they feel the physical tiredness, they feel tired, they feel it is really hard. First months and first years, but they were distanced from their mothers, you know.
Okay.
But they called them and said like, I forgive you, you know. Oh well, I don't forgive you, I don't care, but we are fine. If you did this for me, we're fine. We're fine. It's fine. It doesn't matter. Whatever happened later, it doesn't matter, because you feel at the same time, if you are with your baby and in a peaceful situation for a long while, you ask yourself, well, I was like him someday. Someone took care of me. And you ask yourself if that really happened, in what way. Maybe they just turned on the TV and went away. but you don't remember that. You are not able to remember many things that you see through, or you try to see through the eyes of your kid.
Yeah, because you actually, as the writer that you are, and well, through your books, it seems like you are always at least reading and writing from a very young age. But you, for example, you asked your mother, I guess, that you were never read to, like you're now reading your child, Sylvestre, children's books. But in your book it says they never read any books for you. Is that the case?
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds really like complaining, like weeping, but it wasn't like...
It sounds very hopeful, because then you can still become a writer, you know?
There were no books around.
There were no books around.
And it was more like, go to bed. It's late.
Okay.
TV is over, you know, like it's midnight.
Okay.
No, I mean, I did have a person who told us stories, but that was my grandmother, but we didn't live with her, but she was the most funny person I ever met.
Her sense of humor, we can still read it in your books.
Yeah, I think so. She was really funny. I think she was the only funny person I knew when I was a kid.
Okay,
but that her story was terrible, because she had lost every everyone when she was like 15 years old. I'm guessing because we never really knew her age. You know, it was a mystery. You know, we were celebrating birthdays, but there was no.
Only the day, but not the year.
There was no numbers in.
Okay.
But when she was really young, there was this terrible earthquake in the south of Chile, in Chilean, and the whole city disappeared.
1939.
Yeah, 1939. And her mother died, her father, most of her sisters and brothers, were many. And one of them survived and rescued her. So she used to tell us the story of this wall falling against her mother's body, you know, and also the feeling of swallowing earth and the escombros. And at the same time, she used to tell us very, very funny stories that were gossip of young people around before the earthquake. And as she was telling us those stories, all of a sudden she started crying because she remembered all those people were dead.
You know? Oh, well,
so the laughter and tears were mixed the whole time.
Okay, well, I can also see that a bit in your work, talking about funny stories. Now I will get to me asking you who Jennifer Zambra is, because one of the chapters in the first part is called Jennifer Zambra. So could you clarify this a little bit?
Well, I can ask you instead.
Okay.
What would have been your name if you would have been a girl?
Ilse.
Ilse.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know why I thought about that many years ago. But I knew from the very beginning that I was going to be called Jennifer. Because, I think, I don't know when...
You asked your father or mother?
Yeah, my mother.
Oh, your mother. Okay.
Yeah. I don't know when it was possible to know if it's going to be a boy and a girl or a girl.
At that time, if they could tell, or if they wanted to know, it depends. Yeah. I don't know.
So we all had 2 names.
Yeah.
And actually, I remember when I thought about this. It was many years ago. I think 10 years ago, when I went to a school full of kids, and I was thinking on a way of approaching or asking things to them, because I was supposed to be there as a writer. I mean, it's a very boring situation for them, because they were like 10 years old and 9 years old. So the writer is visiting this place. Wow. And they celebrate because it is something different to do that day, you know. They don't have to study. They have to just be there.
Where was this? In Mexico? Or?
No, in Chile.
Okay.
In Chile. So I decided to ask them what they think would have been their names if they would have been the opposite. And it was really funny.
They all knew? Or?
No. It was more because they did know, probably because of their age. I'm telling this story terrible, but what I mean is that was a difference. So I was looking for difference between them and me, and I thought, well, these little guys probably didn't have 2 names, because you learn the genre. The sex very soon, like 3 months, 4 months.
Yeah.
So it's not that you have to choose that in advance now.
No, so you were copying.
Yeah. And it was a very different world and very now it sounds even silly, you know, that the colors for a girl, the colors for a boy, the painting the walls and stuff. So I asked them what would their names, what they want. Well, you know, you get what I mean.
What they would want their names
it's really
to be.
hard.
Yeah.
Struggling with grammar here.
What they would want their names to be if they were different sex. Yeah. Okay.
It was a very interesting question. I'm not sure the teacher liked it, me asking them.
Never invited
but it was a very
again.
innocent question too. Like I wasn't like it's random. You could have been born a boy and you a girl, and another way of asking them what names they like.
Yeah, of course. They will not mention a name that they dislike. Yeah, so it makes sense. Yeah. But
And then I started thinking about what my life would have been like if I would have been Jennifer Zambra and not Alejandro Zambra. And then I started asking people. I mean, in the book there is a flirting situation.
well, more than a flirting situation. You are meeting your now wife, right? In the book.
Yeah.
You are in New York, I think. What happens there? I think you really got away with what you said there. Is that actually true?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. The thing is that my name would have been Jennifer Zambra. Now you know. You can call me Jen.
Okay.
And I asked Jasmina, and
That's your
she
wife.
told me that her name would have been Silvestre, and actually that was the only name they had for her, because her mother was totally sure that she was going to be a he, you know. So she always says as a joke that, but it seems that it is not a joke, that her name, which is slightly weird because there are a lot of Jasmine but the way it is spelled it's very, very unique. Jasmina was an improvisation, you know, because it didn't have a name for her as a girl. And so, but the thing is that her name as a boy would have been Silvestre.
Your son's name now.
And I thought, that's a beautiful name, you know. I really loved it. I've never thought about that name as a name, you know, even though I know it is a name, but it is not a common name.
You knew then already that one day you wanted to be a father. I'm asking.
What?
You knew then already that one day you wanted to become a father.
Yeah, I mean, I never not wanted to be a father, I have to say. I mean,
Okay.
I totally get why people decide not to have kids, but I didn't think of myself as someone who wouldn't have a kid.
Okay.
Never. I mean, I don't know what that means, but in that moment, I thought, well, that's the name of. That should be the name of our son, but it was a first date, you know. So it wasn't really like
So I don't know
accurate.
how you pulled this out. I really don't.
It's not. I think I took some risks, involuntary risks, because I just
You are a very
said
lucky
that,
man.
you know, and she was like, "Wow, you are intense," you know. But then when we waved goodbye, earlier than expected.
Okay, she was
she
pushing
said
back a little bit.
she said like I think we are going to be very friends with Jennifer. She said, and then finally said more than friends.
And then you were like going home, being happy. I want to talk also a bit about your father, because, well, let me start with a simple question, because I sometimes hear that of friends that they recognize their father in their kid. Has this happened to you, like physically or in terms of character?
Not really, but I mean, my father on my kid, no.
No, so far not.
No, more physically. Yeah, I think one picture. Now that you mention it, there's one picture where I think, well, he looks like my father, but he's much more beautiful than my father. You cannot imagine.
Yeah, I haven't seen your father. I haven't seen your kid, so I don't know.
I'm gonna show it to you, but later.
Nice.
No, I'm kidding.
But you and your father have.
I'm kidding the whole time.
Yeah, you and your father have.
But he's ugly anyway. No, I'm kidding.
Because your father is also in the book as a character about the robbery that we just discussed, but also as a person who is like fact-checking your book, and you could even say, like, I don't know, as in a strange way, a sensitivity reader. Like, he's really involved in what you are doing, apparently, but sort of hiding that in a sort of strange father-son kind of way. Do you think, in terms of what we discussed of non-communication with men, and the thing that you described about the relationship to your parents during dictatorship and like being a little bit of you as a child, as a boy, like not being very good with your father, do you think it is still necessary? I don't want to take a big Freudian leap, but for example, for your child, for Silvestre, to kill, so to speak, his father as our generation perhaps felt the need to do.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah?
Yeah, okay. It's part of growing up, I think. The thing is that it is, and it is better that if it happens that way.
Have you thought about this? Like which form this could take and how you would like handle that if you...
I don't know. It's something that I would face in one moment or another, and what I feel the most is that we would disconnect, and that
for a few years maybe, or you mean permanently?
Yeah. I hope a few days, you know. But I feel that a lot. I mean, I know how hard it is growing up. Up to now is pure joy. I mean, there's nothing easier for me. The most easy thing to me in my whole life has been being the father of that boy. I mean, everything else, really hard. Being a couple, being a son, being a teacher, being a writer.
Being a couple is also hard because it seems all very harmonious. Or did you write it that way for yourself?
Well, up to now. Not always, but I mean, there is a learning process. I mean... What I mean is what I meant. I mean, simply it is easy. I mean, it's natural, and we have fun, and obviously there are difficulties, but
you also in the
it's
book...
not really. No, I learned a lot from him, and it's not a sentence. It's not something good to say. I mean, it's not for saying it. I mean, it's really like you are learning the whole time. I mean,
from your child.
Yeah, I mean, I know it sounds silly, but
maybe.
But no, you're learning. You're really learning. For example, you're learning. You see how he learns to speak. And I'm sure this happened for all people who have been around kids. I mean, even beyond being father or mother, for older brothers, older sisters, you know, you see how they struggle and how they learn to talk. You know, it's impossible not to think a lot about your own learnings, your own forgotten learnings. You know, you cannot remember when you didn't know how to talk, when you didn't know how to write, when you didn't know how to walk. So watching them is like really enlightening and in many senses, and you relearn things you thought you already knew.
Yeah, you forgot that you knew maybe, or you never knew them. But, because somewhere in the book I think you say, writing for me is about trying to see something as if I would see it for the first time. I don't know if it's in this book, but this is what you learn from your child, I suppose, when his...
I think there are many writers that have thought the same way. I mean, this is more like an idea from Baudelaire, but I think Bruno Schulz, for example, and on Argentina, Eve Ward, there are many writers that have seen art, writing, and literature as a way of getting back to childhood. It is obviously impossible. It is impossible, but we lost something we want to recover.
But these are also writers of a certain way of writing, right? These are not the writers, or maybe you disagree, who write what you would call maybe the long novels, right? Or is it, I don't know, is that what you think, or is just any writer? Because you mention examples of writers who...
Well, Baudelaire puts the image of the convalescent. I love that image. The child and the convalescent. The convalescent, comes back from sickness and, for example, recovers the power of walking. But in that recovery, he relearns it. He has to relearn. He has to learn again how to walk. So I'm not saying...
Picture,
I'm not saying this is like the general rule, but many times we are faced with the fact that we overlearn things and we lost the capacity of going through new things, for example.
Trying new things in your writing as well, not writing the same book all the time.
That's and I think writing is about rewriting. Your new book is always a little rewriting the former book and
doing it differently,
and doing a different thing, and at the same time accepting the fact that we are changing the whole time, that the world is changing, and that our position in the world is changing. But I think in a way we there is in my case it was very clear that there was a moment where I realized I've gotten to a position where, I don't know, when I was 18, 20, 21, maybe, it was very clear that I have overlearned, that I have obeyed all rules, and I have tried to obey. I have tried to succeed. In very usual and
formats.
Yes, and then I had to start over, and that's when writing to me became I want to say imprescindible, but necessary. Imprescindible is like
imprescindible,
imprescindible.
It was like
something you cannot not do.
Yeah, well, that's the perfect translation, I think. And this has ignited again your writing, your birth of your child, in a sense.
What?
It has ignited your writing again. It gave it a boost.
Well, I think you're reborn in a way and at the same time you think a lot about that in a different way. You know, when your kid is born, you think a lot about that.
Well, when it's born, you or in general?
When it's born. I think everyone, in a
Okay,
way.
well, we should ask that at the drinks later.
What do you
I'm
think about that?
curious.
Sounds really like
That would be a nice
so
topic.
not a TV show, but in a way, in many ways, I mean, you think that you want to be there when they grow up, and you
course.
feel that your own life is different because there's something new there.
It's very vulnerable.
And basically, I know, I would say all mothers and fathers, but who knows, that they would put themselves between the ballet and the body of his or her son or daughter, you know?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So it's really like the first time you would die for someone. That sounds really romantic, but it's true. I mean, it's not a sentence.
It's just how it is.
It's just when it happens, you go and save, and you don't care about your own life. I mean, it is really something. You feel that your kid is part of you.
Yeah. So I can't really see the time because it's so dark here. How are we in time? Okay. So well, I just wanted to ask. When I don't know which age you were, but at some point you wrote, I mean, I am supposing that everything you write is true for now, that you wrote a letter to your father. What age were you and why? What was it about? So you were leaving home?
Leaving home.
Leaving home.
Yeah.
And you needed a letter to tell him?
You mean the short story of life? Well, it is the same, but in this case. But there is a story here about that moment when you go home, you leave your parents' home, and in Chile, as I think happens in some other places, kids don't go when they are 18 because they study in the same city they live, as it happens in Santiago. So it was kind of a big deal to leave your parents' home at 20. Now it sounds so natural. By then it wasn't natural. I think now kids stay until 40 living with their parents. But and we really had a bad relationship by then. So I wrote this letter to the father, and he didn't read it.
He told you he didn't read it.
Up to now, he says he didn't read it. And when this book came out, and he read it and he liked it. This is the first book my father likes of mine. I mean,
really.
I asked him again. And he said, "No, I didn't read it." And what he said is, when I learned that he didn't read it, I asked why. He said, "I'm gonna read it when I'm willing to cry."
And he said, "I remember now. I'm gonna write a book about you too, called I don't know, Waves of Losing My Son."
Yeah, because the novel is called Ways of Going Home.
Yeah, that's another novel. Yeah.
No, but it rhymes.
It rhymes, of course. Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. So all in all, in your book, it comes across as, although you don't share the same interest, because your father is, well, I want to ask a last question about that. But first, as a reader, I think that this Alejandro really looks like his father in terms of sense of humor and being able to be cruel in a funny way. But you didn't share the same interest. So your father always wanted to take you fishing and you were just there, like, preferring to read, perhaps. But then it struck me that somewhere in your book, well, he lent you his favorite book. Well, I don't know, you lost it, or so people have to read that. But you said there's some resemblance between writing and fishing. That puzzled me.
Fly fishing.
Fly fishing, which is like moving the whatever really quickly. Is that it? Yeah. Yeah.
I wouldn't say exactly like that, but
I don't know anything about fishing. But,
who likes fly fishing in here? There's someone who likes fly fishing?
very quiet.
No. I don't. So, but I was asking myself why, because it's beautiful. You go to these beautiful landscapes in Chile. There are many places for fly fishing. And I remember when my father got obsessed with it, and it was weird because you need some practice to
throw the line.
There is a technique. There is a whole learning associated to it. So sometimes you would see him in the garden with doing this, and I thought, well, this is really our last shot, like he became totally crazy. That's it.
Yeah,
we go with the flow, and we say that, oh, you got a beautiful salmon, like, no, it's not salmon. I know fly fishing is not salmon, but in a way,
in terms of writing,
I tended to reject everything my father liked, except for soccer, or everything associated to masculinity. I don't know why fly fishing is something so masculine.
Wow. Catching, I don't know. I find it very masculine.
But that
like hunting in a way.
I can imagine why hunting, but fly fishing,
I've never.
You need a lot of patience. It is really contemplative. Obviously, there is this silence, supposedly characteristic of men. But what?
Yeah, we'll be down a lot.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I would say that the half of the book is about masculinity in a way, and in a way, I wrote many pieces of the book, thinking what's in me of all that rejected world,
Okay, yeah, that's interesting.
I mean, that's why I write about soccer. I mean, and because there is some, but football, I can say football.
Yeah, you can.
Because football, in a way, is not in a way. Football is really stupid, and it's really slow, and I love it. I mean, there is something about football I wouldn't be able to explain.
You love it because it's boring.
No, I don't know. There's no reason. I don't. I can watch a game and forget about everything, and I'm totally stupid when I'm watching it, and I could be really thinking and feeling the game. But if you put yourself a little outside, you have to admit that it's not like many things are happening there,
I mean, if you watch it without sound, it gets worse. Right? Yeah.
Yeah, but I think they at first all kids obviously don't like football. It's more like they are exposed to it,
Your son
or they
watching
play it, and no, he's more like playing than. Yeah, he has watched like 2 games. One really slow.
Okay.
And the other one was the end of the World Cup that was absolutely exceptional, full of goals. And so if people would have that game as an example, everybody would like football. But the other one was the final of the Eurocopa, Italy against France, I think, 0-0.
Oh, I honestly don't know.
It was really boring. It was really boring. But I was telling you that in the middle of that game, my kid was trying to have fun. You know, I was watching it and trying to enjoy it, and was
He was doing his
she was betting for, but there was a moment where he came across and asked me secretly, but we were alone, but as a secret,
like whispering.
He said, like, "Really, Dad? What's the funny part of it?"
Ouch. Okay.
Yeah, but I mean, the soccer is something I didn't reject it, and I heritage the same soccer team and all that. But everything he liked, I didn't like.
Okay, and it might be, well, we'll see about what Sylvester and you, how you will deal with that, because I can also imagine that you on purpose pretend to dislike things to make him like it, or you would never do that.
We have a lot of fun.
Okay.
But I don't know what. In the book, there is evidence of he mocking me. You know, with this. There was a day where he said that he had noticed many stupid things that have happened to me, many mistakes, and decided to write a book called Alejandro's Travels. Oh?
Already.
Yeah. And it was like, Alejandro has a terrible headache. Alejandro spilled water in the keyboard and had to buy a new computer. Alejandro was like...
He's becoming a reporter of his father.
Like 7 things that he noticed that were my troubles, my problems.
That's very beautiful. Alejandro, I thought about reading, since we talked about when you have a child and you start thinking about death a lot. I also read that you started drinking a little bit less and trying to live healthily to become older. But I thought, yeah, it's quite common to give them a present for the child that's so lovely described, with full of love. But yeah, I decided against it, so when we finish, I'll give you a small bottle of local, really strong, good gin that won't give you any hangover. And I want to thank you very much. It's been an honor to have you here.